And a good rainy Tuesday to you. Welcome on into Lunch with Claibs and Joe here on claibsonline.com. I'm Joe Roderick. He is Mike Claiborne and Claibs. We are out here at Mungenast Burkard Alton Toyota. Ugly day here in St. Louis.
That's all right. We haven't had any rain in a while, so it's all good.
I haven't had a whole lot of baseball canceled on me the last several weeks, and that happened this past weekend. So I don't like that.
Well, I'm sorry.
I know. That's as much as I need a break from it. I still don't like when I have the stuff scheduled and it's over. Baseball's over for you though for the season. You are done. Obviously, you're here. The rest of the Cardinals organization is out in Colorado and then over in San Francisco this weekend. So as you sit here, 156 games. Into the year, you're done. Your assessment of what you saw this year.
Somewhat surprised by the outcome. I thought this would be a better team, but your offensive struggles were just something they couldn't overcome. And I don't know where you go from here because you can't. As Wilson Contreras said, we can't win with this team.
Yeah,
he's right, and he's part of the problem. Like everybody else, this is a team effort, but they couldn't score. And they have more one-run games than anybody. I think they had 100 games where the game was decided by 3 runs or less. And, you burned up a bullpen because you had to use them every day. So where do you go from here? I think that you have to make some decisions on some people on – can they help you? And first you start off, do you bring Paul Goldschmidt back?
Right.
We don't have another first baseman in the organization. And I know, let Burleson do it. Okay, be careful for what you wish for. Lucan Baker is a serviceable minor league guy that really doesn't have what you're looking for. I think we've seen enough of him to know what he is or what he isn't. And at his age, if he hasn't made it by now, it's not going to happen. So you have to make a decision on what you're going to do at first base. You have to make a decision on what you're going to do at second base. The only decision that doesn't need concern is shortstop.
Right.
I mean, I think the outfield is up for grabs. I mean, Ciani made himself into a very good defender. Offensively, he's not the guy you would hope for. And I think it was even more glaring because we didn't score. Because, I can get away with a guy who hits 260, 250 and playing center field if everybody else is contributing. Right. They didn't.
Rammer and I kind of touched on this yesterday when it comes to it because a lot has been made of the fact that Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado underperformed this past year, and part of they're two of them. But those two were supposed to be middle of your order 3-4 guy cornerstone leaders, superstars of your team. They didn't perform well. But when you look at, the whole thing, I mean, you mentioned Wilson Contreras. When you look at all the numbers, he performed better than any. I mean, he was one of your best offensive guys on the team overall. But I think the bigger aspect of it is, Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado didn't perform, but I think it's bigger that Nolan Gorman and Jordan Walker just did as little as they did, because when you're putting that lineup together back in March, and you're looking at that and you're, okay, maybe you wanted 20 more home runs combined out of Arenado and Goldschmidt.
They had Gorman penciled in to hit third.
Right.
Okay.
And what do you think the projections were of Jordan Walker?
He had so much work to do defensively. I thought he was a guy that could probably hit 20, drive in 75, 80, if that much.
Right.
But I thought because of his defensive struggles, I wasn't counting on him to have that breakout year. And now we realize his swing doesn't work at this level. I mean, he's a mistake hitter. So that was probably something I anticipated, the slower growth. The Gorman thing was just a total failure. This was a guy who's been with the team, 3 years now. And had they kept him, he would have set the team record for most strikeouts in the season. And he would have been in the 200 strikeout club. Yeah. My opinion was they should have shipped him out right before the All-Star break and see what they can get out of him.
No, you mean trade him completely, not just.
No. I mean, send him out. Send him back to the
Oh,
minors.
okay.
But then, here's the thing: we talk about sending guys to the minors. They weren't any better there.
Right.
And that's where you're supposed to go work on your game. The only one who they sent out who worked on his game and did something was Palante.
Mm-hmm.
And they sent him out and they said, hey, you need to find a pitcher you can get righties out with. And he did. He threw power sinker, and that was a difference maker for him. But everybody else you sent out really didn't do anything. And that's a concern with regard to how you develop players, which leads me to this. And this is kind of a long-winded answer. The most important hire is going to be who takes over the farm system.
Mm-hmm.
Gary LaRocque did a nice job, but the Cardinals were short personnel-wise as far as instructors are concerned. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I think we're going to see change because everybody else is increased. They're taking scouts off the road and putting more people in the developmental stage. And I think that's something the Cardinals will probably have to do as well. But, overall, it was disappointing, because you thought they were going to be better. Mm-hmm. You rolled the dice on 3 graybeard pitchers. And for the most part, you were okay. I don't know if you can bank on those guys for next year. And you have 5 of those guys already signed.
You're talking Lynn, Gibson, and
Sonny Gray.
You put him in that category as
Sonny Gray's best years are behind him.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, he threw 160 innings this
year.
Yeah. So
you paid him to be you paid him to be
a front end
yes.
guy. But he's not. He's a front end guy. He's not a front end guy on a good team.
Yeah.
Front end guy on this team because we didn't have everybody, and we weren't a good team.
I would argue that Gibson and Lynn did exactly what you brought them in and paid them to. Like that Miles Michaelis' season was a disappointment.
Yeah.
But Gibson and Lynn did exactly what
agree.
and when we sat here and we talked about their signings, if you would have said, hey, these are going to be their numbers, this is going to be what their stat line is. Okay, hey, if Gray pitches to as an all-star like he was in 23, then great. If you get Miles Michaelis back to where he was 2 years ago, great. I mean, it would have been a lot different story because those two did exactly what their job was for that.
It didn't, but here's my concern with that. We got guys who on the other side of their career. Do you think you can get that out of them next year?
As far as who?
I don't know if you bring Lynn back. He's got a little bit more on his arm than everybody else. But do you bring Gibson back?
I would think so.
Do you bring you're stuck with Sonny for 2 more years. So
you say stuck like it's a bad.
No, what I'm saying is
that's where
here's why I say it. Because this year his money wasn't that impactful.
Right.
But the next 2 years, it gets very steep.
So you go into this offseason and I think one of the big things you look at first, you have 2 starts coming up this week of McGreevy, who in his first major league start was outstanding, was lights out. And he should have gotten starts before today. I think McGreevy should have had another opportunity
Who are
to
you
pitch.
going to replace him with? Who's he going to replace in the rotation?
Michaelis, you had all those starts missing from Lynn when he was hurt. You had, I think the opportunities, you go 6-man, I think the opportunities were there.
6-man rotations are interestingly discussed. Most pitchers don't like it.
Right. But you were out of the race. You were
out of the
scratching and clawing for it,
well,
and he came in. I think he earned it. This isn't I saw some good things. No, I think you saw 7 innings of shutdown baseball his first start, and if he goes out there these next 2 starts and has similar outings, and he very well could against the Rockies and the Giants offenses, I think that is a huge discussion as to where he fits into your team next year.
I disagree. I don't think you can. Now, you're going to run him out there, and he's going to face 2 teams that are out of it. We don't know what kind of lineup they're going to put out there. So it's really hard to assess how good this guy can be because basically he's going to be facing a lot more minor league guys than he is big league guys. And I think it's one of those false hopes where, you have to be careful at this time of the year in assessing people. Case in point, nobody thought Mason Wynn could hit after they saw him last year. and he was one of the more consistent players they had.
Right.
So I'm not sure if I think if the guy goes out and throws a no-hitter or something, I'd say, hey, hooray for him. But what makes him good? What do you like about him that makes him a guy that you think can be a difference maker in your rotation?
If he goes out there and has and pitches at the major league level and has 2 more solid performances like he did in the first one, which was 7 innings, 1 run,
Mm-hmm.
then I think you say, okay, hey, the pressure up here isn't too much for him. We're going to give him a look. But I think that trickles down, though, to still I'm not saying he's your number 1. I'm saying you take that money that you're not going to spend on Lynn next year. What is he, $11 million? That the option is that you're probably going to decline. And the $20 million from Goldschmidt's contract.
25.
Do you look at another top of the line starter like you did last year with Sonny Gray? And then you have
So who?
That's I don't know.
See, I think you have to be careful with that. We keep putting Band-Aids on the bigger issue of not being you to go out and buy pitching is very costly. If you look at the good teams, they normally either get a guy early on in the game or they bring him up to their organization. You don't go out and trade or sign guys as free agents to come in and solve your problem. We did it with Sonny Gray. We did it with Lance Lynn. We did it with Kyle Gibson. But they were all guys just to keep our head above water. They weren't guys who took us to the next level. And it's not their fault because, as we mentioned, the offense wasn't as good as it needed to be.
Was Gibson a 1-year deal?
1 plus an option.
Okay.
I think he has an option too.
And then maybe if you like what you saw at Palante, and Palante is a guy that you think can be a starter again next year, then maybe Gibson doesn't come back.
I'm going to keep him because of what he does clubhouse-wise.
Right.
He's impactful.
Which is also the argument for Lynn too, right?
Yeah, to a point. I mean, and the thing is, all 3 of those guys were different in their leadership skills and just how their impact. I won't call them leaders, but their impact on the clubhouse was much different, and each one of them was different. Lynn was more of he was an accountability guy. He'd look you in the eye. Gibson was a guy that would ask you a question. Sonny Gray would just be very frank about how things are. But they were all different, not condescending, not people that you didn't want around, but just, they served the purpose. They did a good job on that front. Here's a real cold hard facts. You're going to have to move some of these guys. As I mentioned, we have Michaelis, Matz, Fetty.
We didn't even mention Matz in that whole discussion.
Palante, and somebody else. We have 5 guys that are already on the contract for next year. All 5 of them can't help you.
Right.
So what do? Do you move them? How do you move them? Do you eat some of the salary just to move them so you can get some other people in? I think this is going to be the most intriguing offseason we've had in years.
6 more games left this week, Colorado and then San Francisco. The 3 games in Colorado will be a celebration of Charlie Blackmon, who announced yesterday that he's retiring. So, that's a guy that one team his entire career and was a lot of fun to watch throughout it.
It's funny because the Cardinals, there were some people within the Cardinal organization that coveted him. The same time Dexter Fowler was available. There was one camp that wanted Blackmon, the other camp wanted Fowler, and obviously we ended up with Fowler, and that didn't necessarily work out. But I enjoyed watching him play. I enjoyed watching Blackmon play. And getting out at this time is probably a good move for him because Colorado's not going anywhere. Right. My concern is what will they do with Bud Black?
Yeah.
Because he's a good manager, but he just doesn't have enough to work with.
Already had 1 firing in baseball. David Bell let go by the Reds. Just signed a contract extension a year ago, and then let go this year. A disappointing season for the Reds. Wonder how many we'll get the last week of the season, but it feels like that week. Now that the weekend is past, if you still have a job, you're probably going to keep it until maybe Monday. Saturday, Sunday. You think Monday, you go all the way to Monday, you just don't let them sit that last game out and say, look, we're going to make a change?
No, I think, you play it out, and you're going to make these moves early because you don't want to conflict with postseason.
Right.
So, and I was looking at that the other day. So there's really like 4 jobs that I think are out there: Miami, Seattle, White Sox, now Cincinnati, and there was one other spot. Oh, Toronto.
Mhm.
I don't think that guy can survive. So you got five jobs that are going to be open.
Yeah.
And I think because teams don't want to wait, I think they're going to jump all over people quicker than they normally have because, what does your guy look like now? I mean, is he an analytic guy, or is he a guy who understands analytics and knows how to apply it? Can he keep a clubhouse? One of the deals on David Bell, great guy, but he lost the clubhouse. Some guys had not improved. De La Cruz is one of them. I mean, here's a guy led the league in errors and strikeouts. Those are 2 negatives right there. And he's not, I know he stole a lot of bases, but the flip side was he was giving it all back with the strikeouts and the errors. So, and he didn't improve. And so it comes down to a point where how do managers manage today? Because the players, they run this, man, and they're going to do what they want to do, and there's nothing you can do about it. And I mean, case in point, you can't tell me that they didn't work with Nolan Gorman. They recognized what his problem was and talked to him and this and that. He still went back to his old bad habits.
Right.
So it's a league-wide thing where the players run this now. Managers have very little say-so.
Is there a name that's out there that you've heard that's kind of the hot name this year as far as a bench coach, former player, somebody that's wanting to get into the game as managing?
Good question, because Stephen Vogt, rookie manager, no experience.
And a name that you didn't really hear much last year. When David Ross got the job with Chicago several years ago, that was one you kind of saw it coming. He was pretty vocal about it.
Yeah. And, go back to Mike Matheny. Nobody saw that one coming.
A guy like that would be intriguing because he is around the game. Mark DeRosa. He has a nice TV job right now. He managed Team USA, so he has done that. Do you think he wants to do that 162 games a year?
He may want to, but I don't think somebody wants him.
Okay.
Yeah. No, he's not. I know he would like to, but somebody's got to like you as well.
Okay.
So, and we have to be careful with the TV presence, because that sometimes blows up in your face. Where, oh man, he's the guy because I see him every day. He sounds like he knows what he's talking about. And then there's somebody else who will sit there and say he has no clue what he's talking about. So you have that, and I think it's kind of like guys who get in the Hall of Fame who are on TV. There are guys that get in the Hall of Fame quicker because they're on TV. I think the same thing happens with coaches and managers as well. And then we find out they're not very good.
Right.
And, we see it in the NFL. We've seen like Jeff Saturday. He thought he could walk in and save the day in Indianapolis, and all he did was make sure they got a better draft choice.
Took him off the high school sidelines and just threw him.
Which was an unfair. That thing had no chance of succeeding.
Right. That was just kind of a favor to everybody around on all sides.
Basically, it was like, see, I told you.
It's a lot harder than you thought it was going to be, huh? Hey, this is Lunch with Claibs and Joe. We are out here at Mungenast Burkard Alton Toyota. All kinds of new 25s right here in the showroom, Claibs.
You got a new ride.
I did get a new ride. It's out there. Finally got one off the lot here. Actually, the one I got was off the lot at Acura, and they drove it over here to Alton Toyota because I was looking at both websites, both stlouisacura.com and altontoyota.com, and I saw a few that I liked. I sent them in. I was shopping from there, and then I came up here and test drove it, and then decided on which one I wanted to buy. So it was a very simple and easy process out here at Mungenast Burkard Alton Toyota, and that is how they will work with you as well. Katie's not over there right now. It was Katie over there that was helping me with that.
Car buying is so much easier today. I mean, you can get your car and you can get exactly what you want on it. It'll be explained to you what you're getting. It's a lot easier than what it used to be. And with the selection they have here, that's the hardest part because they have so many cars to choose from, whether they're pre-owned or new or 25 miles. I mean, they got something for everybody here.
And it looks like they're driving one or they're moving one around the showroom right now. One of the new Tundras. Is that Tundra or Tacoma that they? That's a Tacoma.
It's a car that's going in reverse coming this way. So that's all I know.
I don't know where they plan on putting that car right now because there's one in the way, and that door's not open. So we will figure that out, Claibs. We'll take a break. When we come back, a lot of football talk from here on out, right here on Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Gray Bar, driven by Mungenast St. Louis Acura here on Claibs Online.
Nobody wants a surprise in their jelly donut. That's because the middle is the most important part. At Gray Bar, we're at the middle of electrical and datacom jobs across the country, connecting installers, facility managers, and business owners with smart solutions for their most challenging projects, which means stocking and delivering crucial products on time and on budget, with no surprises, thanks to our nationwide logistics network. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
Who's this?
Back here, Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Gray Bar, driven by Mungenast St. Louis Acura here on claibsonline.com. A lot of football to get to for the rest of the show. Speaking of football, talking football each and every Thursday morning. New episodes here on Claibs Online. It's Jim Thomas and Coach Mike Martz, who you sat down and talked to him and Adam Timmerman.
Yeah.
On Friday night live at Lowe's.
It was good. It was a good weekend for football in St. Louis. We had a lot of players come back from the greatest show on turf team, and having a chance to catch up with those guys, a lot of fun. And anytime you can talk to Mike Martz, whether it's in person or listening to him with Jim Thomas, you're always smart about the game. And I'm glad he's part of what we do. He and Jim have done a phenomenal job so far. And if you haven't heard it, you might want to check it out, because if you want hardcore football, they're going to give it to you. Jim Thomas should be in the Pro Football Writers Hall of Fame. Mike Martz is one of the brightest minds still in the game today. And to listen to those guys chop it up is a lot of fun.
They told a story that I had never heard. I don't know if you had ever heard it either before their show this past week. They were talking about, I want to say it was the 2003 or 2004 draft. And Mike Martz said he went in the room and he wanted Troy Polamalu. And he told them, I want Troy Polamalu. He said, everybody else in the room said, I want Jimmy Kennedy. And they put it to a vote, and Mike Martz was the only one that wanted Troy Polamalu. And they said, Coach, it's your call. And he said he succumbed to the pressure, and he went with everybody else and went with Jimmy Kennedy, because they told him no safety should be taken that high. And we know how that turned out.
Yeah, I've heard that. You know, I get it. That was more of a philosophy issue than anything else about when you take certain players. Jimmy Kennedy didn't work out, obviously. Polamalu, you have to take this into account. He was around other good players defensively.
Yeah.
So, when you put a guy in the middle of the field, he better have some people around him that are pretty good also. So, when you see those sort of draft situations, you have to think about the other components that are involved, and why you take a guy, why you don't. And in that situation, could he have had the same impact in St. Louis as he did in Pittsburgh? Maybe. I mean, he had the skill set. To me, he was a better athlete than Jimmy Kennedy was.
Right.
Because, when he's talking about defensive tackles, man, you don't know what you get.
Right.
Man. So this is one of those things, man. And I mean, you look around, every team has a story like that about a guy they passed on that ended up going somewhere else and playing well. So, Mike. But Mike knew the game. I thought was even more telling was that for a guy who's so offensive minded, he knew he needed defense. And he wanted a guy that was going to be on the field.
Want guys who get them the ball back on that offensive side of things. I wish we could share some of the pre-show stories that Mike and Jim are sharing before we hit the record button on some of those. I really enjoyed those as well. Maybe we need an after dark kind of show out of the two. I remember it's nothing bad. It's nothing bad, but it's
one year we were playing in San Diego. Mike and I went to lunch one day, and man, he opened up the book on certain people and certain teams, and I was riveted to what he had to say about some of it I knew, but a lot of it I didn't. But man, I mean, you talk about a person who pays attention. I don't know anyone who's smarter than Mike Martz when it comes to that.
Just something. I mean, it's some of the simplest speeding tickets coming back from Macomb. Hearing those, hearing those kind of stories. Adam Timmerman, by the way, that's he is committed to the bit with that flat top haircut. That is. I don't know if that's something he does for the reunions or if that's something he's been doing since the 90s that he just says, hey,
He's always had it. And, one of the things about him, he's one of the few guys in the NFL who signed a long-term contract and lived to see it play through.
Mm-hmm.
I think about him. I think about Reggie White. There's a handful of guys who didn't have to take a pay cut.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have to have it rearranged, but he played every down for the money he was due.
Yeah.
And I thought he was maybe one of the most important offensive pieces to that team.
He was. I mean, then when Vermeil got that Chiefs job, he went with Vermeil to Kansas City too, didn't he? Did he? No, was that somebody else that I'm thinking of? Because I thought that, but I mean, he was the center. He was one of those centerpieces that they needed to have here to help with that greatest show on turf. Yeah.
He knew how to play all the positions. He was a track star in high school.
Mm-hmm.
High hurdles. He's a good athlete, but you put him on line with Pace and Grudoria, and they had some really good players. Yeah. Tom Newton was a good player. Fred Miller, Ryan, what was his name? From Baylor. Tough guy. TCU, one of the two. Ryan Tucker. They had some really good pieces, man. They had some really good pieces, and it was just good to see all those guys when they were in town. And kudos to the Cardinals for even thinking this was a good idea and bringing them in and making sure they were celebrated. And I know the players were truly appreciative of that.
Week 3 is in the books. We are down to 5 teams that are still undefeated. Pittsburgh, Kansas City, Minnesota, Seattle, and Buffalo. Of those 5 teams, I got to say, biggest surprise has to be Pittsburgh with Justin Fields at quarterback.
I would agree. Yeah, I mean, because remember when they acquired him, he was supposed to watch this year while Russell Wilson had the experience and they were going to ride with him. Wilson's had the calf injury that slowed him down, and Fields took advantage of it. But, the other thing is they have a little bit more of a running game now, and where the pressure isn't solely on him. He's got a couple of decent receivers to throw to, and they have been a pleasant surprise. And I never bet against Mike Tomlin. He finds a way to get things done.
Yeah, and Russell Wilson been inactive. I mean, he's dressing every game, but he's the third quarterback, and seeing him, seeing that scenario play out the way it has, and just looking back, I mean, it was 5 weeks ago that we were talking about Justin Fields getting reps at wide receiver, and now he's currently leading a 3-0 team out there in Pittsburgh, and it's amazing to see. The lack of chances or maybe the lack of coaching that he had in Chicago. You mentioned Mike Tomlin, that Justin Fields was kind of he was traded for nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
They just want to get him
They wanted to get rid of him because they wanted to bring Caleb Williams in instead of building around Justin Fields up there in Chicago and getting him some protection on the line. They thought, no, we're going to start completely over. And now, I mean, we're 3 weeks in and there's already talk of Caleb Williams being a bust. I think it's after this many opportunities, I think it's not the quarterback's fault.
Well, it's interesting you say it that way, because when you look back on the history of the Bears, when did they ever have a great quarterback?
No, I think Caleb Williams, whatever he passed for, was it 360 yards or something this past week? It was the first time that anybody had a Bears quarterback had thrown for 360 yards in, 10 years, 12 years? I mean,
who was the guy? Who was the last guy?
I heard it this past week, and for the life of me, I cannot remember who it was right now, but it's one of those where it's a name that I completely forgot. Yeah. Oh, just a name that's like, oh, yeah, he did play quarterback for the Bears.
Yeah. No, they've never had good quarterbacks. I mean, they were known, and I go back a little further than you, the only thing they had was they had a guy named Bobby Douglas, who 1 year rushed for 987 yards as a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't throw. I mean, he had a big arm, but he didn't know where it was going. And then McMahon, when he came along with the Bears in the 80s, I think he threw for one game. I think he had one game of 300 yards the whole time he was there. I mean, they just didn't do it. They just didn't have it.
Yeah, I'd have to dig and look up who it is, but I mean, it's one of those two where you look at the Bears receivers over the years and how futile that position has been for them over the. It is. I mean, it really is remarkable for a franchise to go that long and just be that bad at offense. I mean, special teams are great. Defense is great.
General managers and coaches. This isn't one regime. This is just It's just the whole environment, man. They can't get it right.
Yeah, it really is unbelievable. So you have those teams. So I mean, Kansas City, they've gotten lucky to get to 3-0. They've had some calls go their way to get to 3-0. They are beatable. I think that's one of the things they've shown, that they're not some powerhouse. None of these. Maybe Minnesota might be the best looking 3-0 team of the five that are there.
I would also say this. Let's look at who they play, because again, as I've said to you before, nobody knows who's good in this league for the first 4 weeks, because between dealing with injury, dealing with the fact that they're now getting in football shape, and you're going to have some pleasant surprises and some disappointments, you don't really know who you are until the end of the month.
Right.
And then we'll find out who really can play and who can't.
Yeah, absolutely. It's but what Sam Darnold has done there up in Minnesota so far, maybe Kevin O'Connell, maybe he's maybe not getting enough credit for how good of a coach he is.
Well, he and his staff.
Yeah.
I mean, I would definitely give them credit. Their offense has really turned out to be better than exceptional, and they're doing it with different people.
You have, what is it, 1, 2, you have 3 teams that are 0-3 on the year right now. Let's start with Cincinnati, because they are not as bad. They are not in 0-3. I mean, that's what the record is, so that's what they are. But
your record says
it is. But they've caught some tough breaks this year, and as a team that you still think could maybe 0-3 takes you out of playoff contention, but they're a team that's going to still wreck some other teams' possible playoff.
I don't really know if they can. I mean, they lost some key. The Joe Mixon.
That's I was just gonna say. Joe Mixon leaving is
they don't have a
huge
receiver.
for
They
them.
don't have a receiver ready to go. And the way they spend money, they threw it all into Burrow, and they have some other concerns. Their offensive line is a huge concern. Defensively, they're a little bit better, but they're not really difference makers like they once were. So I could easily see them having a negative record this year.
That they have Carolina up next, then Baltimore, then the Giants. So 2 of those next 3 games better be a win.
Yeah,
if they want to get back in to the mix here. So which team has caught your eye the most this or 3 weeks in?
Nobody.
The parity has been pretty. I mean, look right now.
I don't think anybody has set the world on fire, because again, I think they're all flawed in some way, shape, or form. I kind of look at Baltimore and wonder how they ended up losing 2 games early in the season, because the way they can run the football, they can be interesting to watch. Yeah, maybe Buffalo. Buffalo kind of reminded everybody that they know how to run the ball too, and they have a very good quarterback. And I think it also says that Jacksonville isn't as good as we thought they were.
Mm-hmm. No, I saw today Shad Khan saying that this is the best roster that he's ever put together, and they're 0-3.
I guess my question to him would be, where is your roster that
right?
Good? I mean, you have a quarterback that was the first pick, and everybody thinks he's the second coming. Okay,
I couldn't name you one other offensive player on that team right now. I couldn't name you one offensive superstar on that Jacksonville roster.
Yeah, and I think that there lies the problem.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have enough around their quarterback in order to make themselves legitimately relevant, and they're going to have some work to do.
Yeah,
because they're one injury away from their season being over with anyway. I mean, they're not deep. They're not deep enough, and you have to have depth now.
It is. I mean, we are 3 weeks in, and 3 of the top quarterbacks in all of the NFL right now are Justin Fields, Sam Darnold, and Geno Smith. It's. I mean, it's kind of. It says a lot for all of these quarterbacks that are getting paid massive amounts of money this year. I mean, you look at the Dak Prescott contract and what Dallas paid him before the season, and spending $40 million on a quarterback is not necessary to be this powerhouse team.
You get paid for what your value is in the league.
Mhm.
Quarterbacks are making that kind of money, then so be it. But the guys you just mentioned were all second and third chance guys too.
Yeah.
So they're not making big money. They're in different systems than what they were. There's a lot of factors that surround why quarterbacks are good and why they're not. And, I always preach line play and having a creative offensive coordinator who knows when to throw the ball, making sure you have a running game. I mean, when you look at Baltimore, they're going to be a handful when the weather gets bad between Lamar and the running back. I mean, they're going to be tough.
Yeah.
And when teams get away from that element, that's when they get themselves in trouble. And as good as Kansas City is or have been, they better figure out a running game before this is over with.
Yeah, once the Ravens get past this tough stretch of their schedule, they're going to go on a run and at some point win about 10 straight.
Yeah,
they have the schedule in front of them to where they could win 10 straight.
And they better on defense than people give them credit for.
But you try going from catching Lamar Jackson in the backfield to trying to tackle Derrick Henry. You're
gonna be tired. You're gonna be tired Sunday night, man. That's a lot.
That is not going to be fun. I think they have. Is it Ravens Bills? I think have the Sunday night game this next week. Yeah, Ravens Bills Sunday night, and then another doubleheader Monday night. I don't like those Monday night doubleheaders.
Yeah, it's. I don't know why they do it, to be honest with you, because it splits up your viewing audience.
Yeah. Splits up the announcers.
Right.
I mean,
although I thought I watched the game with Louis Riddick. I watched a little bit of that. I was going back and forth, and that's not a bad team. That's not a bad.
But you're paying Joe Buck and Troy Aikman a lot to be the voice of Monday Night Football, and then you're giving your fans another option.
True, but I mean, you know what? They have nobody to blame but themselves.
Right.
I mean, they're the ones who wanted more games. So
my football viewing is I sit there and I watch Red Zone from noon to 6 on Sunday. I have the Red Zone channel on, jumping around from game to game. So when it comes to Sunday night, when it comes to Monday night, it's just having one game on. I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. Just having one game on, listening to that one game on.
Yeah. I think we put too much stock into the broadcasters.
It's not even, I enjoy the broadcasters. There really isn't an NFL broadcaster that I can't stand. But I do, when I'm watching the Red Zone, you don't really get any of the broadcast.
Yeah. We've taken football and we put it on a different plane than we do the other sports with regard to what we want out of the game from a viewing standpoint. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that most people who watch it never played it. So they have a different outlook on what they look for and what they expect from the team. And you can always tell the ones who haven't played it the way they rip quarterbacks, and they don't understand there's a lot of things that lead up to why a quarterback may have a bad day. Now, he may be part of the problem, but he is not the sole problem.
By the way, speaking of broadcasts, Friday night, when you introduced me to Chip Carey, that's the first time I met
really?
Chip. Yeah, that's the first time I met him, and we sat over there and we talked for a while you guys were doing the show, and it was really nice to meet him and get a chance to talk to him. I have enjoyed his work the last 2 years a lot, and getting to sit there and just talk to him about all different kinds of things was a lot of fun.
Very well versed individual in a lot of different subjects. It's been fun to travel with him and Brad and Ricky and John and Jim Jackson and Jim Hayes. We have a good time. As a matter of fact, they went out to dinner last night and FaceTimed me from this dinner they were at, because I was the only one that wasn't there. But yeah, he's been terrific for a broadcast. Significant improvement.
We will take our final break. When we come back, we just went over a bunch of NFL stuff. We need to talk a little college football. Huge game coming up this weekend. And we will talk about all of it here on Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Gray Bar, driven by Mungenast St. Louis Acura. Today from our home at Mungenast Burkard Alton Toyota here on Claibs Online.
Are you ready for a challenging and rewarding career? Are you ready for a challenging and rewarding career? There are quality jobs in the construction industry.
I got out of college and my career choices were very limited, and this provided me with a plan for the present and the future at the same time.
I actually have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and I was making less than I make as a first-year apprentice painter.
I didn't go to college. I have no college debt. I make more money than the majority of people I know that went to college.
Take your first step towards a rewarding career. Visit stlouispdf.org.
Final few minutes here of Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Gray Bar, driven by Mungenast St. Louis Acura. Joe Roderick, Mike Claiborne here with you. Final week of the Cardinal season. We discussed that at the beginning of the show. If you missed any of that, podcast will be up later, or you can view the show anytime you want. Facebook, Twitter, or on YouTube. Find it wherever you find all of your Claibs online shows, including Daily Cards Live, which will continue into the postseason, and also
Who do you like in the postseason?
Phillies are going to be real hungry after coming up short the last few years. I think whoever comes out of the National League wins it between the Phillies and the Dodgers.
I had San Diego.
Really?
They don't have a weak spot. I mean, they have a very good order. Their pitching is better than average. Their bullpen is lights out, and they have a good manager. I think Philadelphia and San Diego will play to see who goes to the World Series, because the Dodgers don't have enough pitching.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with all the injuries that they've had, and their bullpen is not what I would call intimidating. So I'm going to take San Diego.
What do you think? Prediction right now, what does Shohei end with? Home runs, stolen bases?
He's at 53 now.
Is he at 53 right now?
He'll hit 3 more before it's over with.
How hard do you think he's going to try to get 60-60?
You know what? I think he's going to try and do what's best to help this team win. Okay. And obviously, if he can get on base and hit home runs, that's great.
He's at 55,
Yeah.
55 stolen bases. So he'll get the 60 stolen bases.
Yeah. I don't think he'll hit 60 home runs.
The tear he's been on, though, that'd be fun to watch.
He's facing the Dodgers for the final 3, I believe.
Padres this series, facing the Padres this week, and then this weekend the Dodgers are taking on the Rockies in Colorado. In Colorado.
Yeah, well, that kind of changes things. That kind of changes
60-60 back in play.
Yeah, it might be. That's a good point.
That's never, and it will never be seen again, will it?
No.
So this past weekend, college football, Claibs, I mean, I sat in my car in a parking lot watching the final about 6 minutes of that Mizzou game and the overtime. I thought I could go out and run some errands. I thought Mizzou would be able to take care of business against Vandy in that second half after starting off slow again. But they made it real interesting down the stretch and pulled off a win, survive and advance, going to 4-0.
Well, they should have never been in that position. The field goal kicker made a couple of kicks. I'm going to give Vandy some credit. Their offensive line was as good as I've ever seen a Vanderbilt offensive line. They had size. They were tough up front, and they kind of pushed Mizzou around a little bit. So I'm going to give them a lot of credit on how their game plan was tailor-made to beat Missouri. And if they could have made a kick, who knows what would have happened. But I think what the problem we may run across is it was Vanderbilt. You know, how can you be that close? Vanderbilt's better, man. They've done a good job in a very short period of time. I can easily see Vanderbilt as a bowl team. Not in the playoff bowl,
right? And just one of the Pop-Tart Bowl.
They'll have a plus record this year. They'll have a plus record. But
Mizzou dropped a few spots down to 11. I know it doesn't matter. I know you're going to say that doesn't matter, but the fact is, I mean, 0-4 or 4-0 is 4-0 at this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it doesn't matter if you're 24th right now or 11th right now. If you continue to have that undefeated record, you're going to find yourself in the top 12 by the end of it.
You could. And the only reason
I do not see a team that goes 11-0 that's not, or 12-0 that's going to be left out of the top 12.
It's designed for them not to happen. But and granted, it was a smaller pool to choose from. Florida State They made a big stink about how they were treated late in the year when it
Yeah.
came to the rankings. But this thing it'll settle itself. Missouri's got a very good schedule to go 10-2.
Right.
Easy. They could go 11-1 if they can get on the road and do some damage.
Yeah.
Uh,
And that's the thing. If they go 11-1, if that one losses to Alabama and they beat Oklahoma, 11-1 gets them in the top 12.
they have
Still.
Tennessee this year, right?
No.
Tennessee's off.
Yeah. No, they don't have Tennessee this year.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. You're right. So yeah, they could. The way things shake out, they could go 11-1.
Yeah. That's they
So
got to go 2-0. They have the bye. I mean, this is the whole goal of these first 4 weeks was to go 4-0 and then sit back and assess the issues you have, fix the problems you have, and be ready to
the
get into conference
back-to-back
play.
Alabama, Oklahoma might be that's where you could stub your toe.
Yeah.
But you have to beat everybody else on the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be a 2-loss team that's going to be in this playoff. There may be a 3-loss team that might get in, depending on what their schedule was like. And I go back to this all the time, man. That non-conference schedule that you put together, you think you're padding for some wins. You better find somebody on that schedule that's good, that you can say, hey, we even played these guys outside of the SEC or outside of our conference. And those are the sort of games you look for. And I'll give you a good example. Texas, they took their show on the road and they're like, yeah, we'll play you.
Right.
And I think that's one of the reasons why they moved up in the position that they have, because they have some star power and they have some talent, and they weren't afraid to go on the road and play somebody.
Illinois, also 4-0, moved up to 19. Yeah. They got a big win Friday night against Nebraska. So now they're ranked 19th, and that could all come crashing down this weekend. They go to Penn State. They are 18-point underdogs to go into that one.
Yeah, and Penn State's trying to send a message too. That's going to be a better game than people give it credit for. I'm not sure about Penn State. I'm really not sure about Illinois, because I thought Illinois was going to be this good next year.
Mm-hmm.
But Bielema's done a nice job putting it together. But let's face it, man. You're on the schedule to play good teams.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd rather see them go into Penn State and see what can happen. One thing I warn them about: Franklin will run up the score on you to get attention. And that's something, man, that when you look at the games and you see these massive scores, they're trying to get somebody's attention. And I guess it works because they keep doing it.
How important is Georgia Alabama this week?
It's big. It's big for both programs. You got a new coach. They've always played each other tough, no matter what. But this is going to be a different look. Bama's a little better than I think people are giving them credit for. It wasn't like Saban left the place empty. There's still some good players there, and it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a battle, and it'll be decided at the offensive line.
That is your primetime game on Saturday night. Georgia at Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Alabama with a home field advantage in that one.
You ever been there?
Mm-mm.
Right, Denny? It's a fun place to go, man. Yeah, you know what?
Mizzou goes there in a couple weeks.
There's not a bad place to go in the SEC.
Right.
I can't say that about when the Missouri's in the Big 8 or Big 12. There are places that you never want to go there again. But there's not a bad place in the SEC.
That's going to do it for our show today as we get ready to watch the Cardinals play one more week of baseball, and then a lot of off-season news we expect, as you said earlier in the show, one of the biggest off-seasons, one of the most important off-seasons that they've had in recent history, with some of the moves they need, with some of the things they need to do this offseason.
Roster-wise, I think
organizationally, yeah.
Standpoint also.
So we'll have all of that as it happens here on Claibs Online, and a whole lot of football talk as well. Until then, we thank our friends out here at Mungenast Burkard Alton Toyota. Neither one of us has said hi to Jamie yet. We got to go do that when we wrap this up, and we will see you next time right here on Lunch with Claibs and Joe here on Claibs Online.
Mungenast St. Louis Acura has the all-electric Acura ZDX. The ZDX can go up to 313 miles on a single charge, and the DC fast charging lets the ZDX gain up to 80 miles in just 10 minutes. When you lease an Acura ZDX, you can save up to $7,500 with a federal EV lease credit. Or you can buy the new ZDX and get 0.9% for up to 72 months. Come on in to Mungenast St. Louis Acura and take a look at the new ZDX for yourself.